Hey, Buru, hey, Boya, hey, Bucheche, everybody in Cyberland. Hey, it's your favorite Babaláwo. At least I hope so. Odun, Odile K coming at you with another great video. Hey, I just realized that I scheduled this live for 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. It is now 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I thought I had it scheduled for 7 for one reason or another. So, for all of those who tuned in, one, I apologize. And two, I got to tighten up. I get it. I see the flaw. I got to tighten up, make sure that I lock these things down. So, what I would like to do is I'm going to give a few minutes, right? I'm going to give a few minutes to ensure that as people start to kind of see this live kick in, they understand like, hey, okay, it has begun, right? So I want to make sure that I don't interfere with anybody's ability to ask questions, right? And get answers, at a real time notice. So, I'm just going to let a couple of people log in now. Hey, Buddha Boy Abucheche, Taishan, good to see you on there. Janae was on time at the 6 p.m. clock for Central Standard Time. So I appreciate you, Janae, if you're out there. So again, as this ticker kicks up, right, and I see my first, dozen viewers on, then I'll start chatting about what I want to chat about because this is going to be a good one. This is going to be a really, really good one. I think that this particular segment, right, I named it Truth, Balance, and Destiny, right, in Ifa because I think there's a massive misconception of this faith, a massive one. And I want to make sure that we address it so that we can call it good and hopefully with any luck, right, we can get through with understanding some foundational truth about Ifa, Olokumi Ifa, particularly, but more importantly, just understanding the logical concept of life, destiny, truth, wisdom. That is the point. That is the point of all this. I just want to be a genuine broker for each and every one of you, not to push anything or any specific agenda, but I want you guys to really take a real hard look on what I'm about to say and really conceptualize that a little bit, okay? All right, that's the idea, that's the goal. But more importantly, right? I want you to ask questions. Any questions that you have, throw it in the chat. You know we get down with questions. This is the reason why I wanted to start early and probably why I said 6 p.m. Central Standard Times because I was like, you know what? I last on there for about an hour and a half. Let's make it two. Let's make sure that we're not, crossing over super late where people need to go to sleep on the East Coast or in Europe, etc. So I'm trying to do right by you guys. So if you can, throw your questions down there. As always, like, share, subscribe, right? The more subscribers I get, the more people I'm able to, get a hold of. If you're able to share and we're able to multiply those things, we can double, triple our influence. And if you like what I have to say, my perspective and things, again, I am not the governing guidance. I am not the Ifa master, and I am not the writer of the book. That's God, Olodumare, right? And I just use my elders, I use my experience, right, in order to get me to where I am today. So that right there is key. All right. With that said, all right, let's see. We are at about to go on 5 minutes. I wanted to kind of give it a little bit before I jump in. Just a little bit longer. A little bit longer. All right. All right. With that said, I think it's time to get into the meat and potatoes. What do you guys think? Okay, so first things first, let me explain something that's very fundamental, right? One, let me tell you something that I didn't fully grasp until years after being a Babaláwo. You've all heard my story, decades of doing this stuff. As a Babaláwo, over a decade of being a Babaláwo, understanding the faith, the spiritualism, the egums, just everything in general to include being involved in the Abrahamic faiths and gone through sacraments, etc. You guys heard this story. But after years of being a Babaláwo, I had to understand that Ifá is not a religion. Ifá is just a matrix of truth, logic, understanding, right? In order to get to wisdom, which then kind of brings into perspective who is Orunmila, but the Orisha of wisdom, divination, destiny, and the reconstructor of. Right? But here's the thing, not everyone is ready for that. Right? Just like the movie, The Matrix. If you haven't seen it, look at it. Right? The person's offered two pills. You stay in the Matrix, have this illusion of what right looks like, or you could take the pill and get to the truth. And with that truth comes some hard realities. And with those hard realities comes responsibilities and obligations to get after some things. You can stay plugged in and keep going through this disillusion of things. But that is the key of understanding, right? Some people would rather live the illusion than the truth. And I'm not here to be a hater. I'm not here to convert nobody. I'm not here to tell anybody anything different. It's okay. That's okay. Because Ifa teaches us, right? The world needs balance. Even the middle of the road people play their role. Even the folks all the way to the left and even the folks all the way to the right. I need balance, right? That is super critical. So why do I say that? Well, this leads me to my next point here. So a CS facts. I love it, brother. I love it. So I'm not a teacher. I'm an instructor of independence. I'm an instructor that wants to tell you what I understand, what I've seen, and I can back that up. Not only because I was raised in the streets, I was raised in the Northeast, not only because I trust me, I live the streets. Trust me, I've been in the military. Trust me, I've been to war. Trust me, I've been shot at and a lot of other things on top of that. I've been involved in fraternities. I've been involved as a Babaláwo. I've learned truth, both hard truths, right? Not only by learning from others, but also experiencing them. I tell you as a veteran, as a father, as a grandfather, I tell you as a lot of different perspectives that I'm here to instruct for independence. Now, yes, as I have a flair of Ifa, absolutely. My job isn't to raise followers, right, for these channels. My job is not to, continue to push podcasts or things like that. Sure. Yes, everything costs money. Podcast channel costs money. To have the Zoom costs money. To have my Microsoft Office suite costs money. My time is valuable. Think about it. Think about it, okay? And I tell you this because I have a full-time job. That's why my time is valuable. I don't need the faith in order to pay my bills, my mortgage, my job, my car, my family, food on the table. I don't need any of that through Ifa. I know why I do Ifa. It's to train the minds and to help the Aleyos develop the spiritual independence that they need. This is what Ifa has charged me with. But let me explain. Let me explain even further. And Greg, little boy, Abucheche, my brother, good to see you. Now, we're not here for it's all about me energy. We're here for it's all about we energy. Right? This is a very big, important thing that I want you guys to understand when I talk about truth, balance, and destiny. Particularly, we live in a society where it's all about me. I wonder if people can see me. I wonder if I look the best. I wonder if he likes me or she likes me. I wonder if I do X, Y, and Z, maybe it'll let me in the pearly gates of heaven. Hey, if I don't do X or Z, people will like me, peer pressure. And you get into this energy, right, of the we or the me concept versus the we. But here's what Ifa begins to teach us, and this is why it's important. Because a lot of times we talk about the concepts of Aleyos, those who have received their introductory initiations into the Yoruba cosmology of things. And that's what I call it, Yoruba cosmology, a faith system of Ifá, Orisha, and Ogun worship, the trifecta that comes together to give you the truth, the balance, and the destiny that you need to go. So that means that Babaláwos, or priests and priestesses, are what? Well, we build character, ethics, moral, legality. We develop the critical thinking. We provide the tools, not the crutches. So to make it clear, this is not about control. It's about structure and truth. But here is the hard truth that a lot of people don't want to accept, specifically certain people within certain mentalities, right? You leave a certain level of being raised to enter another level of being raised, and maybe you're just not mature enough to handle it, right? Think about it. If I became a Babaláwo, let's say when I was 13 years old, I don't know if I would have really been able to handle it. If I continued on my journey, and let's say I didn't join the military at 18, maybe I still will not be able to handle it. If I didn't leave the street game alone, maybe I still wouldn't handle it. Here's what I tell you is that all your experiences are going to guide themselves. Right? Eyobe teaches us, Ndibere teaches us, Ogunda Belde teaches us. Man, there's just so many signs. Obeyono even teaches us, right? To a certain point, all these Odu Ifa begins to teach us that, listen, if you really want to do right by yourself, if you really want to take care of yourself, you really want the truth, the balance, and the destiny, we have to stop being arrogant. We got to be more humility. We have to find humbleness in our hearts in order to pass that out. We got to be able to follow before we can lead. We got to be able to crawl before we can walk. Some of you have heard me say this, whether it's on a YouTube short, whether it's on my podcast, whether it's on whatever you think you can see or hear or understand. You know for a fact that you cannot put the horse, you can't put the cart in front of the horse. The horse needs to pull the cart. Hopefully you guys are all understanding where I'm going with this. So here's what I say. Be careful about running. Right? Learn the basics about the faith. Understand the spiritual leaders that you have. If you have a problem with a Babaláwo, you have a problem with a Santero Santera, have the audacity, the courage, right, to be a person and have that honest conversation one-on-one. Hey, I don't like X, Y, and Z. I would like to learn X, Y, and Z. I would rather do X, Y, and Z. And then when the elder responds to you and you still don't like it, then you understand that you two are now no longer compatible and now it's time to separate. Right? But we got to be careful because the traditions and the culture that we live today, people are seeing. And what they do is they drive divisions. That's why we cannot talk about people. We can't talk about priests and priestesses, and we can't talk about our godchildren, our Aleyos, because it draws division within our own faith and people from the outside that already have a problem with the Yoruba way of business, Ifa, Ocha, Piritismo, right? Palo. They use that very energy against us, and we have to be considerate for that. And that's something that's very important. Very important. So, Janae, hey, Drake, what's going on, brother? Hey, how much of your life story speaks to your destiny? So, for the Babaláwos out there, I'm going to tell you a very interesting story. So, my destiny was spot on. I was a Wani Buffoon in my Awofaka. Right, so for everybody out there, the Babaláwos anyway, we'll look up a Wani Buffoon and you begin to kind of see, just to get to Janae's question, what do we know about a Wani Buffoon? What do we know? And so then when you look at a Wani Buffoon, if I was already telling me that this is where the rivers join the oceans, the crossroads between understanding whether I'm going through a control current or if I'm going into the big blue sea. And if I'm not careful, Owani Buffoon marks the funeral arrangements. That news of funerals will come to my life or I will be in the funeral. The person that's very curious, that doesn't necessarily know how to mind his business. And if he's not careful, he will find himself in different lands, but more particularly, finding his death in different lands. In addition, right, Owani Bufun also said that, I have a young lady that needs to receive Ikofa to secure weddings, and I got to be careful with the women because people are going to try to manipulate me. And because of that particular concept, so Owani Bufun, I didn't listen. And I'm saying these particular details because that's my life. Owani Bufun. I rushed into a marriage to secure a marriage, right? Because a person got pregnant trying to do the right thing. Ifa says don't do. I did it anyway because I was trying to be chivalrous, right? And it led me in the wrong direction, set me back. Got divorced, a lot of drama there in order to get me to where I had to do, but I had to learn that lesson on my own. So, Janae, to your point, how much of my life story speaks to my destiny? As in Onichango, right? As a son of Chango, I went through the trials and tribulations of Chango's characteristics because here's the other truth that people don't understand. Just because you're a son or a daughter of a certain Orisha doesn't necessarily mean that you embody the attributes and the characteristics of that Orisha. So as an Onichango, I wanted to do certain things that maybe aligns with the characteristics of Chango, but is it morally right or ethically right? Should I be a womanizer? Should I be partying and drinking when I have obligations and responsibilities? Should I not be leading? Should I constantly always look for war in order to determine the reign of my power? Do all those things you got to be careful about because that's Chango. Is every role to play when it comes to injustices of others, does that fall onto me? Do I need to fix the deck for everybody else? Those are Onichangos. Now, Onichangos always got to be careful with a lot of different responsibilities that they may be in tune. Right. So then when you start to kind of look at, hey, where was I going as a kid in the streets? Right, trying to take not only who I was as Onichango, but also Wani Bufung and trying to apply those things. I was a force to be reckoned with in the streets, but it was dangerous. Again, Wani Bufung is saying, hey, you're gonna die before your time if you're not careful and get your stuff together. So boom, there you go. Janae, just a little snippet about me, right? And not to mention every other fraternity I've been in and every other thing that I've done, right? To get me to where I am today has really helped me grow, but I was able to slow down. I was able to learn from my elders. I was able to really incorporate from the old heads, you know what I mean? The old school, OGs. And that was probably the most important thing that I could have ever learned. Learn how to humble myself, probably stay quiet, probably forget the words I know, and just learn to listen. Listen and not even say anything or ask for anything. Just my 2 cents. Hey, Buddha boy. Hey, just had the most horrible experience with a well-known Babaláwo. Luckily for me, I'm already a woman of strong, good character with integrity. I don't do arrogant egos, no matter who you are. CS, I agree. I think you should be able to stand on your own. Each and every human was born with their own crown. How you wear that crown and how you present it is very important. So I applaud you if you went to this Babaláwo and you had to kind of set the record straight. Like, listen, I don't like X, Y, and Z. And if they don't like what you gotta say, and you don't like and you guys are both being respectful at that moment, then guess what? That's okay. There's a lot of Oduns Ifás that say, hey, the godchild will separate from the godfather. The godchild will separate from the godmother. There's no harm, there's no foul, because you probably already received what you needed to receive in order to get to that next stage. It's like a video game, right? You got to get through stages. So I'm proud of being able to say, as long as we are having those honest conversations and we are keeping our community safe and our community pure, we're having honest conversations, we understand when it comes to a spiritual advisor entering your life, right? It's almost as if you're moving in with somebody for the first time, right? I'm gonna get married to this person. I'm gonna move in with this person first. I'm gonna test the waters, right? And sometimes we don't get it always. We don't always get it right. How many people are you gonna say everybody that you were engaged with, you got married to? No. If you say that, you're probably lying. Not everybody in this world that happened to. So sometimes you figure out, hey, we're not getting along. This doesn't work. It's toxic. Hey, you know what? It's time for me to move on. Do we just give up? No, we don't just give up. Right? Find yourself another spiritual house. I would tell you in my spiritual house, there's quite a few people that I have taken in. I have gone to Ifá, asked Ifá, can I take this person in? This person comes from another house, and we do the transfer, and everything is beautiful as can be. And there's people that I had to have let go from my isle, and there's people that have left my isle, right? Because sometimes they don't like the way maybe I am teaching them. Maybe they don't like the way I am approaching them. Maybe there was a conflict of some sort. Some people just rather have went back to church. It doesn't matter what the reasons may be, right? And that is okay. And we got to be okay with that. We cannot be all, emotional about it. We got to let people grow and develop, right? A boy. That's worse than my destiny. It said to be careful of false leaders. Yes, I bet. Hey, thank you for dissecting that. Makes sense. Nah, Janae, of course. All right. Manaku, I hope I'm saying that right. Manakat, Manuta. I'm gonna say Tara. Tara 7. Boom. Oh, heads are the best. Oh yeah, oh heads are the best. My path, Oyekun Pekashu, did express myself and now has been talking ill to me to others. You see what I mean? That's the nonsense right there. I'm sorry for the community. CS, those are isolated incidents. I promise you. And I get it. As humans, we're always going to be flawed. We're going to have good, we're going to have bad, we're going to have indifferent. We're going to have, again, bad leaders, good followers, bad followers. And in your case, if someone is talking ill about you, that is completely irresponsible. It is completely ununderstandable, if that's a word, but you get what I'm saying. I'm sorry. And that's not something that you should be dealing with. So just know there's a lot of great Babalaos out there, a lot of great Santeras out there. And anybody I'm sure will be glad to have you come into their Ile as long as you can open up, as long as expectations are laid out. We all understand our roles and our responsibilities in order for what? To get to the truth, the balance, the destiny, in order to get to your independence. Right? All right. He's more lust driven than legacy driven. Yeah, that's bad. And there's a lot of people like that. A lot of people like that. This is the reason why I opened up this video that way. Do you think I need additional responsibilities and obligations or the money? Right? Because I don't think so, personally. Now, you guys don't know who I am. You guys don't know what I do for a living. You don't know how long I've been doing it. You don't know what my profession is. You don't know. That doesn't necessarily have a trigger. Now, I do know some very good Babalaos that actually do this 24/7, 365. And I envy them sometimes because I love Ifá that I wish I can do it 24/7, 365. But I have a full-time profession that I'm ready to retire in, and then I can do it 24/7, right? But there are some great Babalaos out there that have been able to do it, balance it out nicely, not necessarily take their god kids for every penny, and you know what I mean, and think that they could pound themselves in the chest and say, "I am almighty because I am a Babalao." No, that's terrible mindset. Oh, terrible mindset. All right, I'm gonna pause there. I'm gonna pause there. All right, so let's get after it. So, you guys get it. I'm not a teacher, I'm an instructor, and I expect everyone else to find that instructor, find that spiritual advisor, get after it, develop critical thinking, and let's get going. All right, changes. Changes in spiritual heights and houses are guided by issue. A lot of people don't understand it, and I'm glad that CS brought it up, right? So see, as you said, I got you. Yes, I'm grateful for you. And I knew it wasn't crazy when I started following you. Well, I'm glad that you weren't crazy for that. But check it out. Here's the other thing. And CS brought it up, right? Changes in spiritual houses are guided by issue. Okay. And I'm going to tell you something towards the end. So for all of you that are tuned in, I want to talk about this concept of Holy Week. Holy Week starts today. It's supposed to end on Easter Sunday. It's the story of Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to tell you the Ifá perspective on that. I'm going to tell you about the Odun, Òyèk, Méjì, and the story that comes out of Òyèk, Méjì, okay, that talks about what our version of Jesus, Jewesun. So stay tuned. We're going to do this towards the end because I want to get after some of these hot topics that are in my head. Because C has brought it up, so now I want to talk about changes in Ile. Not everyone is meant to stay, right? And that's divine. Every spiritual house is addressed differently. Right? Everybody has heard of generational curses at one point in time, right? Everybody has heard that it is your responsibility. Yep. Everybody who looks at this video today, right? I'm looking at you and I'm charging you. It is your responsibility to break the generational curses that live within your bloodline, your DNA. Okay? Hear me out. When you die, you will be judged to see if you got to repeat this cycle all over again because we didn't learn the lesson that we needed to learn, which is the truth, the balance, and the destiny. Okay? Hear me out. So, if we are not ready to be ethical, moral, humble, respectful, right, and open up our hearts to understand that we've came to Ifá, right? We received our hand of Ifá, we received an Ita, we got the advice that we need, and we're not able to follow it, we're not able to truly embody it, and then wonder why things are not necessarily working out the way they're working out, then I begin to challenge you and say, have we truly learned the lesson that was trying to be taught to us long ago? And a lot of people will get their feelings hurt. I am a welfare baby. I am a person that was homeless at one point. I was a person from the projects. That's how I grew up. First generation American from an immigrant family. You name it. This is what you're looking at. And I was able to figure it out. Right? I was able to take advantage of everything that I can take advantage of in this world, become the priest that I know I needed to become in order to make the generations and the future generations of mine even better. So when I leave this land, I know that I met the obligations of Odileke. I met the obligations of Maita. And how many of you can really say that without being self-centered, selfish, or righteous? You know what I mean? And righteous can go in two different ways, left or right. You got to find that balance. And that's why reason I bring that righteousness up, right? So then maybe a lot of you are doing it. And I'm proud of each and every one of you who are striving to be better. Thank you for that. But this is the reason why there's changes in Ile, because Eshu sees no different than the story that I'm going to tell you of Òyèk Méjì with Jesus. Eshu can see those who are promoting, those who are moving, and will open up those doors to make things easy. Eshu removes, reinforces, right? Removes, reinforces, and reveals. The three R's. That's Eshu. Removes, reinforces, and reveals. The three R's. Right? I don't remove people. Ifá does. I just follow because I'm in the passenger side while Rumila is driving the car. That's a conversation my god brother and I, one of my elders, Owani Moso Arturo, down in Lakeland area in Tampa, conversations that we have. As Babaláwo, we don't take things personal. We just keep it moving. Right? So if someone has left an Ile, right, understand that it is to be preserved as a collective destiny. If some people feel that they have not done a lot, but energy works two ways, then we got to think about that. Right? If you invite transparency and if something is off, we don't speak about it. We're not necessarily developing a house. We're just remaining silent and we die with silence. And so we got to always be careful about how we look at things, right? Because those are the things that you need to address. The preservation of a collective destiny, whether it's in or out of an Ile, Some people, again, this is a two-way street. If you're always going to wait for your godparent, right, to come to you in order for you to get what you need, then you're wrong because you're not taking control of your destiny. If you're not asking questions, right, in my ile, for those who are tuned in from my ile, you guys, what do I always tell you? Ask questions. Bother me 24/7. If I don't see the message in the morning, I'll see it in the evening. If I don't answer you, I'll answer you in 24 hours, right? Because you guys know I got a full-time job. So, but you guys will always get your answers. Now, am I sometimes forgetful with some things you got to remind me? Absolutely. But this is a two-way street. Two-way street. And this is like anything else in life. You have to take control, right? And transparency is also very important. I like to always be transparent. My wife and I, we always constantly go back and forth. My wife has a certain personality. I have a certain personality. I am 100% transparent. I'm 100% going to tell you, hey, this is what this looks like. I don't mind having the additional conversations with you. And I will have conversations at length. Anybody who knows me, well, hell, you guys see it here on YouTube. I like to talk. I like to instruct. I love the education side of things and the learning, right? We have to be able to have a house of development, right? But again, like I said in my first point, not everybody's up to the task of truth, destiny, and balance. Some people got to do their own thing. Let them do their own thing. It's not personal, right? It's not personal because maybe their destiny is somewhere else, and that's okay, right? The other piece of that is that nonetheless, nonetheless, you know, we always got to remember that in this faith, you're always going to have three, you're going to need three leaders on your side, right? Here's another nugget that I'm going to leave you. Three leaders, one for Ifá. So that means you're going to need an Ifá godfather, an Ifá godmother. I don't know what they do with the Ifás and all this other stuff. I don't want to get into that. Godfather, father, Baba. Okay. Ifá godfather. You're always going to need somebody, right, who's going to work with you on the Ocha side of the house, which is the Orisha crowning and worship side of the house. Now, that particular person may also be the person that has a lot of connections, like my wife, for example. She's not just Ocha, but she's also strong on the Egun side, the mediumship, the Palo Moyumbe, right? And so when you start to talk about that, right, you get to kind of see that maybe, you're going to sometimes need two spiritual leaders or maybe even three. Because let's say someone's just isolated to Ifa, Ocha, and then spiritualism or mediumship. You're always going to find that everyone will go through some combination depending on their destiny as well, right? So just reinforcing that concept is important. I say that because this is the other piece about iles, right? And when you choose an ile and how an ile works, right? For me particularly, my wife, right, is an Olorisha. She's crowned, right? She can crown others, etc. We can work things out. So for me and her to work together in order to bring someone further in the faith, beautiful, great. Those things work out. But if someone decided, hey, you know what, I want to work, let's say, with my wife in Orisha worship because I like my wife. But hey, Babaláwo, I already got my own Babaláwo. I don't necessarily want to get another Babaláwo, right? Here's where things get a little tricky because I can never talk Ifa with that godchild, right, of my wife because they have an Ifa godfather. And there's the respect that everybody needs to understand. Right? You always have to push them back to their house because that's where their lineage is. That's where their energy is. That's where their H is. That's where their DNA is. That is where their Inquines were born from, right? Think about it, guys. You got to make sure that we preserve that collective destiny and what I was talking about. So I know I'm speaking on a lot of different concepts right now. I know I'm speaking fast and passionate, but man, these things hit home for me. They really do. And I want to make sure that we are catching on to these things. No different than if somebody wants to stay with me. Hey, I like the Babaláwo, but hey, I don't necessarily want to do Olorisha work with your wife. Okay, same concept. Well, you can come to me in Ifa, but when it comes to me teaching you about Chango, Yemaya, Ochung, all the Orishas in Ocha, I gotta pause you and say, listen, out of respect for your Ocha house, You should really ask that question here. Now, how that correlates with Ifá and your Ita, your Mano de Orula, etc., I'm going to let you know right off the bat. Listen, go back to your godparent, let them know that they need to do this, that, and the other, because this is going to complement here and this is going to help out here. And if they need help with that, I am willing to help and I will synergize with that Ocha house. Too easy. Very simple. Very simple. That's facts. Ask questions. Ooh. Hey, CS, you walk with Oya. Hey, my wife is a daughter of Oya. She is also a lawyer. I'm Farafung Oya all day. Facts and ask questions. Taisha, my man. Paul, did I answer your question? Oh, no, Paul. Let me get to you. Iburu boy abucheche, but I didn't have a question. Do our loved ones who passed away on who were not related to us, do they walk with us like eguns, or is it merely their memories that we feel? So, Paul, the concept of death is death, right? Iku comes for everybody. Everybody. Nobody is exempt from Iku. Doesn't necessarily mean that when they transition to the land of Odun, right, that they're exempt from our lives. No, they're probably still with us, and that's okay, right? But this is the investigation side of it. So let me kind of parse this out in two sentences or two different phrases or two different stovepipes, I guess. The Isheshe side of the house of Ifa and then the Lokumi. Because typically I get a lot of viewers that, or sometimes are Isheshe. Within the Isheshe side of the house, we understand that they do a lot with Egungun society. People receive their Egunguns. People understand the ancestral connection they get with their Egungun. And at a certain point, you receive your Igbe and life is great. Right? And that's where, the Isheshe goes. Within Lokumi, Paul, for us, the Lokumi side of the house. This is the reason why when you receive your hand of Ifa, you get your Ita, right? Within that year or at that year, when it's time to refresh and feed your warriors and your Orumila and get everybody back and going, we start looking for you to receive a spiritual Misa, an investigative Misa. This is not a group Misa. This is not for everybody. No, this is a individual Misa in order to start to detail for you who you are, right? In the land of the Egun. So therefore, who walks with you? This is why we talk about la cuadro espiritual, or your spiritual framework. And we get to kind of see these Eguns. And if these family members or non-family members are walking with you, we constantly, take looks at that. That's why a lot of times within our culture, you will see in the Lokumi side, people will probably go through a dozen spiritual misas in a lifetime. In a lifetime, at least a dozen. Why? Because during consecrations, we do misas. During or Ocha consecrations, you do misa. If you have to go to the land of Palo Moyumbe or the Congos, then you have to do misas. If someone in your family dies or something like that after the 1 year of their death, then we typically would try to do a misa for them to elevate them. But anyway, the investigative misa begins to tell you who you walk with and who walks with you and what that spirit guy looks like. Really good thing in order to reinforce the concepts of Eguns and Ifa, the concepts of Eguns and Ocha, and a lot of that comes from mediumship. That's the piritismo. That's what it really comes down to. People getting mounted, mediums, etc. But that's one way of looking at that. So hopefully I answered that, Paul. All right, let's see. I'm curious, what do we call on Oyekun Oshe? So when you talk about Oyekun Oshe, all right, I'm going to talk about it. Hey, remind me after this. So I can get to all my points first, right? Before I start talking about Odun, because then I'll start talking about Oduns and I won't get to all my talking points because I'm really good at missing my talking points. And then, we find ourselves in a different point. All right, let me just make sure I get, all right, so Oyekun Oshe we'll talk about. Let's see. Oloya. That's beautiful. Oyekun Oshe with Oloya. Okay. I'm working on walking the right path and working on breaking the curses. Will it transpire in my son's life as well? Drake, absolutely. Well, kinda. So Drake, your situation is going to be twofold, right? Your son was already born, so that means he already went to Amelie Queen. He already picked his Ori. His Ori was already in conception with your wife, baby born, baby's already here with a destiny. You are reinforcing, and your job is to make sure that now this baby gets to where it needs to get to so we could begin to break those generational curses. But it typically happens another generation in, right? Because this is too close. These two things are happening because you can technically screw this up still. I can still screw this up still. So we got to be very careful. So our job now is baby gets born. We're already lined up. Baby gets born. We line the baby up. We understand the baby, understand where the baby needs to go, put the baby where it needs to be. So that way, when the baby has the baby, now we have shifted the energy here, shifted the energy here. So when now he has the baby or she, right? That layer of that DNA strand is now shifted. There is more options for Ori when they go and pick from a Milik wing and they pick their heads. They pick fresher heads, more prosperous heads, more stable heads, because we have set them up for success. See what I mean? So our job is now to work with the spiritual and the physical world just a little harder here in order to get that going. But that's a great question. And a lot of that you can find from the Oduns of Obeyono, Obetomako, Otrupopinkunwa, Eyobe. You can find those stories. Really good stories. All right. Manuka Tarot. Tarot 7. All right. May I ask your view on covering Orishas with a white cloth for Holy Week and why some houses do that? Iburu, thank you for your time and knowledge. Tarot, I'm going to talk about that very topic. I kid you not. We're going to talk about it, but I have to give you the Pataki first. I got to give you the Pataki. Because then you guys are all going to think I'm nuts if I don't give you the Pataki and where it came from, because you're going to say this guy is losing it. He's cracking. All right. Thank you, and thank you. All right, let's see. What else we got here? Is it okay to initiate to only get your hand marked and not get involved with the rest of the tradition? Yes. Yes, because let's say when you get your hand of Ifa, so CS, since you're asking me, right? Since you're asking me, remind me that same question. Hey, don't forget, Òyèk Oshe, Oloya, and hey, by the way, I want to just get crowned, and I really don't want to play with all the funky stuff. And let me know if that's good or bad. If you write that out, I got you. And for whatever reason I forget, email me. You guys got my emails. You guys know how to look at the descriptions. Everything's in there. Okay. But I'll try not to forget. All right. All right. Yeah, don't put it now because it's gonna get filled up and I'll miss it. Okay. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. My last thing before I jump into we start talking about Holy Week and everything else. All right. Internet gurus, misinformation. Right? Internet gurus and misinformation. You see how we are interacting? Anybody can get on here and interact. You can even look at me, and many people are going to view me, and people are going to say, this guy is a wacko. A lot of people are going to say, this guy is wrong. A lot of people are going to say, right, for one reason or another. Maybe that's what they believe. Maybe they just haters. Maybe they just don't. We don't know what the concept may be. Irrelevant. The thing that you did do that was correct, and if you haven't done or you're going to do, this is what you do. You find the spiritual advisor that you know 100% is good for you, the one you can talk to, the one you can correlate with, the one you can have honest conversations, the one you can learn with, the one you can develop with, right? And then when you see something crazy online, or maybe you don't think it's crazy, but trust me, there's crazy things online that a lot of people don't realize are crazy. And then when I hear people talking about Ifá, especially me, only because I've been somewhat around the corner, I look at it and I say, wow, that's bad information. That is misinformation. Someone's talking about Ifá that they shouldn't be talking about Ifá. If you're not a Babaláwo, you shouldn't be talking to the community about Ifá and Oduns, because you know why? When Babaláwos go through their consecration and they go through something called Igba Odun, okay? They receive something. Something changed them. They received an ache that the Babaláwos know that I'm talking about in order to communicate communicate with the world, to speak Oduns, right? Or give advice on Oduns or interpret Oduns is being part of the problem. And I hate to say that, and I'm sorry, right? And I don't only see this in Aleyos, people who, are not priests and priestesses. I even see this in the Olorisha side of the house. I see Santero and Santeras talking Odu Ifá when they're casting the legun. The shells are the shells. Ifá Odun is Ifá Odun. Mire de legun, Ifá Odun. Yeah, they're both Oduns, but they don't mean the same. They don't mean the same. And that's important for us to remember. So, food for thought. Food for thought there. So, misinformation, be careful. Always make sure you go back to your godparents. Make sure you validate. Make sure you look at what's going on. Aleyo's warning. You don't know what you don't know. And that's not an insult. It's an alignment. I'm trying to help you. I don't know what I don't know. I promise you, if there's something I don't understand, I'm calling my phone. I'm picking up the phone. I'm calling those Babaláwos who've got 30, 40 years of Ifá, those experienced Babaláwos, and I'm asking the question. So, the internet is full of noise. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You don't have the tools to filter real from false. Yet, unless you're initiated, you know what I mean? You still have a long way to go, even as an initiated priest and priestess. So be careful, okay? Please be careful. Don't allow yourself to get pulled in. And I think one of the biggest things you got to be careful about, and this is no knock on anybody, but just I'm going to tell you from experience. Ifa is broken down into two lineages, Isheshe and Lokumi. Lokumi has a concept called Ocha. Isheshe does not. Isheshe has Orisha, right? In Lokumi, we understand mediumship and we deal very much into the Eguns deeper than where Isheshe follows that. Isheshe has Egungun society, has the Oshoronga society, it has the Igbe, consecrations. It has a lot of great things as well. That talks about a lot of the Egun side. But remember, the synchronizations that the slaves had to create is what's real today. That development. I'm not saying Isheshe is not real. Let me correct that. But our system is very complex and our system is very detailed on how do we get from Eguns, how we get from Orishas, how we get to Ifa, how we synergize that trifecta, and this is where we're at, right? Again, Isheshe is beautiful and they do their thing. But here's my point. You cannot cross. You cannot cross beams. Anybody seen Ghostbusters? Don't cross the beams. You can't cross the beams, right? Because you will interfere with the DNA. If you start splicing DNA, what happens? You create monstrosities. Don't do that. If you're Lokumi, stay in Lokumi. If you're Isheshe, stay in Isheshe. Always go back to your guiding principles, which should be your advisors, and allow things to flow. Hit that like button. Nah, hell yeah, I appreciate that. Hit that like button. All right, so that was the real talk. All right, so now I want to read an Odun for you because now we're gonna address Holy Week because I told everybody I was gonna address Holy Week, and this is something that's very much needs to be understood, right? And my wife actually addressed this with our Ile, right, in order to kind of give some guidance, right? Holy Week, right? Although it's kind of very Christian in nature, Abrahamic in nature, right? It has spiritual effects within the Afro-Caribbean religious practices. A lot of times in the Ocha Ifa houses, right? Spiritualism, the Palo houses, right? And there's a lot of understanding that needs to be done here, right? So for not necessarily Lukumi Ifa, but for Lukumi Orisha worship and Egun worship. So particularly those who have bovedas, those who have ochas, right? You may find that your spiritual house, right? Again, and not all spiritual houses are the same, right? They're gonna tell you cover your orishas with white, take down the boveda, cover it in white. Boroboya, Boy, right? And the intent there is mainly to close, the spiritual field, right? And protect it against attacks and wandering energies. But the reason why Ocha kind of tells you to do that is because it understands that in Ocha, if you're doing everything right, you should have received your Ifá, warriors, your Orumila, you got your Teja de Egun, life is great, because that is your foundation, that is your destiny, that is your protection. Ogun, Ochosi, Eshu, Osun, Orumila is what you need in order for you to run forward. So if you're doing everything right, this is another reason why I say don't cross beams. If you go Isha Shed, things look different. There's reasons why things need to stay separate, right? Ifa's Ifa, and we respect that. And I got a lot of great brothers that are Isha Shed brothers. But I need that to be understood, right? Because in Lokumi, we understand that there's a lot more followers, no different than if you look at Africa and Nigeria, not everything is stable and prosperous out there, okay? Because people do bad things. People will do bad things, whether spiritually or physically, they will do bad things. And you protect yourself and you cover those beautiful items of Ocha and Bovedas, and you find that nice clean space in order for things to rest. Because here's something that someone told me, an elder, a long time ago. The crucifixion of Jesus in this point was so massive that it shifted energy, that people now use that energy to ensure that malicious behavior, right, is invoked, which means that the people who like to do the dark magic, the dark things, and work some really bad stuff use this week, because this is the week of betrayal and treason, and the energy is ripe for the taking, right? And it propels that energy and pushes it even further and farther, right? Because this is kind of like a time of mourning to a certain point. This is the reason why the concept of Holy Week and covering the Orishas was important, so that we don't interfere with the development of the person, right? The Olorisha in this case, or the people who are practicing in the Boveda, a lot of the mediumship and the mounting, and we don't want to cross beings with Egun Buruku, obsessed Eguns and evil Eguns, because those things exist. We got to remember those things, right? So that's something that's very important there, right? And this is something that you have to follow your ELES guidelines, and you got to make sure that you understand why they're telling you what they're telling you, right? And if they're telling you, then let it be. You know what I mean? Follow those rules, because that's important. Okay. Now let me explain to you. Here's where it gets really good. Whatever your house does, your house does. I'm not worried about your particular house or how they dictate Holy Week, but I want to tell you from the stance of Ifa and the Babaláwo's out there. You tell me if I'm wrong, or if you have another perspective, let's chat it up. And even if I would like to have a Babaláwo, maybe I invite him in a Zoom and we talk this Pataki out a little bit, because this is a hot Pataki. This is so hot that I'm sure that after I'm done reading this, and after I'm done, interpreting it for you, and we start to get some Q&A, I'm going to get some hot, hated, probably emails, probably some comments from some crazy people that say, how dare you, because this is a hot one. Y'all ready for this one? Y'all ready for this one? Okay. All right. Y'all said y'all ready. Let's do it. So this is the story of Jewesun, the son of Olodumare. Okay. Now, this is out of the Odun of Òyèk Méjì. So long ago, in the realm beyond time, when heaven prepared, or in this case, Olorun prepared to send another divine messenger to earth, the child of Olodumare stepped forward. His name in the heavens was Jewesun, the one who let the sacred leaves sleep. That's what Jewesun stands for, right? Now, he was radiant, he was bold, he was determined to show mankind the path of truth, mercy, and righteousness. But even the purest spirit must pass through the sacred gate of destiny, right? We just talked about that earlier when Drake was asking me, how do I break this generational curse? So even Jewesun had to crossed that gate of destiny. So before descending, Jewesun went before the Awo, the high priest, right, of the mysteries, and he divined, right, with the palm nuts, the kings, enchanted sacred verses. In the sacred verse, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to give you the translation. When death is called from afar, a living soul will answer, because death comes to us all. Divination was performed for Agutang, the gentle one, son of Olodumare, who was preparing to walk among mortals. The Awo told him plainly that there is a conspiracy that's going to rise against you. And if you wish to complete your mission on earth, you have to, or in this case, earth is Aye, you have to make a sacrifice with a sheep, a length of red cloth, but more importantly, you have to offer a male goat to Eshu, the keeper of the crossroad, the messenger who walks between the shadow and the light. Jewesun, his face just grew stern. I didn't come to honor Eshu, he replied. I came to destroy evil and reveal the light of Olodumare. I will not offer to him what he does not deserve. Whoa. Somebody just got really arrogant right there. Yes, I said arrogant. Jesus and the Abrahamic side, for us, Jewesun, that's called arrogance. Because this is the reason why the Abrahamic side decides to call Eshu, hey, Eshu is the devil. Eshu is Satan. Eshu this, that, and the other. Terrible way to get going. So let's keep it moving now, right? The Awo, common wise, right? The Awo here is Orumila, okay? Common wise warned him, no one, divine or mortal, descends to earth without acknowledging Eshu. If you refuse him, it will not be he who destroys you, but the agents he governs. They will rise against you and your work will be cut short. So Jewesun will not be moved, right? He will not be moved. So he completed the offering with the sheep, the red cloth. He, believing this purity would protect them, he departed from the upper realm, Olorun, and took birth into the world of men. And we guys kind of heard how that story plays out. Now, years passed. Jewesun grew up, wisdom and grace. He's gaining it all in. He's walking from village to village. He's speaking with compassion and justice and obedience and the will of Olodumare. Crowds followed him. The sick were healed, the poor were fed, and the voice became a river of peace in the world of fire, right? But one night, Eshu appeared to him in a dream, standing at the threshold between the shadows and the moonlight, and his voice was calm. Message was clear. Hey, listen, not even Olodumare has removed my influence from this universe. You refusing my offering. I have no hatred for you, but I am balance itself. Without the goat, without the ritual, I will do nothing. Just stand back. I will do nothing and everything. I will whisper into the ears of your followers. I will not lift a hand, but their hands will turn against you. And Jewesun answered, unwavering, the righteous must not bow to chaos. I will not give you what you do not deserve. Which I think is still arrogance, because what do you know what you deserve and what don't you know? It's weird. I'm not going to get into it. But anyway, so now, 3 years after being, on his divine mission, right? 3 years after beginning the divine mission, the whispers of Eshu spoke to group. Those who had walked besides Jewesun turned against him, betrayed him, condemned him, crucified him by his own people. Jewesun died. But because he had done partial offering, right, with the sheep and the red cloth, and because his heart, kind of remained true, the heavens kind of, Olorun kind of honored their promise. On the third day, the earth trembled, the sky opened, Jewesun rose, and he went back. Though his body, ascended once more to the realm of Odun, right, his name remained immortal among people, and the message echoed, beyond generations, right? Now, there's more to this. The night before his descent, right, his mother had secretly visited Orumila, hoping to protect her son. She brought with her the male goat that Jewesun had refused to offer and begged Orumila to perform the abo in his absence and give it to Eshu. Orumila listened, and Orumila said, to do this properly, he said, your son must be here. I must gather 201 sacred leaves, and with them I need to wash his head in the sacred grove of Eshu. But he is no longer here. The ritual cannot be done without him. The mother desperately pleaded. Orumila looked towards the forest and said, look, in deep reverence, the leaves in the forest are already asleep. They must not be disturbed. Now you understand. I'm taking a pause in the story. Now you understand Jewesun, Jesus, Jewesun. Right? Because from that moment on, the name Jewesun, it's sealed in the Yoruba translation of he who let the leaves sleep. It became both a name and a prophecy. Jewesun descended with divine purpose, but without full alignment to the forces that govern the world. He did not fail, but neither did he really stay. His path was glorious, yet it was incomplete. So we remember something, right? That in Òyèk Méjì, this is an Odu of shadows and resurrection, the tale of Jewesun that teaches us that even the holiest must honor the laws of balance. Even the holiest. So what does that mean for you and I? All right, so Eshu is not evil, but he's a gatekeeper who enforces the cosmic justice. That a mission, no matter how righteous, must respect all the forces of existence. And the sacrifice without humility, right, leads to betrayal, but sacrifice with wisdom leads to eternal life. So as we walk through Holy Week, we walk not only with Jesus of Scripture, but also with Jewesun, the messenger who let the forest sleep. So long story short, Ifá is greater than what we can expect. It took me even years after being a Babaláwo to understand this, and this is why I keep trying to tell you guys. There's a lot more to the stories than what people try to tell us. So in short, when it comes to your Ifá stuff, your warriors, your Orumila, your Teja de Ego, no, you keep those things uncovered. Ifá understands what right looks like. For the side of Ocha spiritualism, mediumship, right, you will take care of those and you will follow the rules of your Ile. And even in Ifá, if your Ile is saying cover them, then cover them. That's between you and your Ile, right? And you guys got to get to the bottom of it, right? But Eshu, Ogun, Ochosi, Osun, we keep always forever transitioning power and energy and keeping things in balance for us. Orumila, is our messenger, right? And what does 365, 24/7, 365. So hopefully that brings some clarity on this Holy Week, right? But I also I'm not done with Holy Week. I'm not done with Holy Week because I also want to kind of just talk about what I just read. What are the pros and cons here, right? What do we truly know about that story, right? And what does the Bible say, right? Let's just get all into it, right? But long story short, if you look at it, right, with the Bible and, for the Abrahamic side and both Ifá, both realize that, hey, we had a son of God that came, right? The Bible said it in Matthew 1:20 and Òyèk Méjì says it. Perfect. We understand there was a descent. We understand that no matter what, something tried to come down to bring truth, destroy evil, and guide humans into divine alignment, to save humanity from sin and reveal the kingdom of God. John 3:16. You all heard it, right? And then you got the arrivals, and you got the revelations, and you got all the ignoring, and this, that, and the other. And what I thought was fascinating was that Jewesun was killed 3 years into his mission. His death was seeing kind of the consequences, right, of his spiritual misalignment. He should have gave Eshu his goat, kept moving, and he probably would have did some great things, maybe some really good work for this world. But, and it's funny because the Bible says that Jesus was crucified around 33 years old. 33, 3 years, 3 for Elegua, or 3 for Eshu. And it's really funny how you see those things play out. And you got to look at those correlations because it shows us that there's more similarities. It's just that people twist stories. And we got to be careful about the twist. Right? So with that said, hopefully that kind of revealed to us maybe some things. All right, guys, questions, answers, let's post them down here. It's because I'm about to jump on CS, who has nicely been able to tell me, hey, we got to get after my question. All right, let's see. What else do I got on here? Don't forget about me. Yep, no, got that one. Hit that like button. Of course, please hit that like button. Please hit that share button. Please hit that subscribe. So, oye, ¿cómo she? Oye, ¿cómo she with Oya? So Oye, ¿cómo she talks a lot about the funeral processions, but more importantly, the reincarnation after death. This actually fits very well into this video that we're doing right now. It's very interesting that you actually posted this question as I'm talking about, Jewesun or Jesus, right? And then, and then we started talking with Drake and the reincarnation. How do we break generational curses? All of this comes together pretty good, right? So when we talk about reincarnation after death, we talk about an Odun or Yekun Poshe trying to tell you that it is up to you on how you want to finish your life. How you finish your life is whether or not you got to reincarnate and do this thing all over again. And Oyekumoche wants you to reflect and say, do I really want to do this all over again? Because am I going to meet my destiny or I'm not? Your Odun, is an Odun that represents all our dead ancestors and all the fallen friends beyond, anybody who has left you in one way, shape, or form. You were probably marked with Oya because in Oyekun Oshe, this is a sign of Iku. This is a sign of Eshu. This is a sign of Egun. And who better to represent this Odun than a daughter of Oya? This is an Odun that talks a lot about Itutu rituals. When a priest or a priestess dies in this faith, so an Olorisha, a Babaláwo, or a Santero Santera. Santero Santera, for all of you learning, is an Olorisha. Um, we do this thing called an Itutu rites and rituals ceremony, a full thing. This is a big deal. And this is born in Oyekun Ishe. Well, I won't say it's born out of, but it has portions of the Itutu rituals and rites in this sign. This is when, it leaves one body and enters another, where the Orishas need to make decisions on whether they want to stay or they want to go back with the person as they die. If they stay, they're staying in order to help family, in order to help godchildren, in order to help that spiritual house push forward during their absence. In this particular Odun, we say that, Oyekun Oshe says we got to stay away from the alignment of too many things in our home that align to Eguns, that align to death, right? Particularly, try not to put too many flowers, that you would typically give to the dead in your home, right? Make sure that, everything has its place when it comes to Egun. So if you have a Tea de Egun, Yekun Oshe as a daughter of Oya, make sure your Tea de Egun is outside. If it's not outside, make sure it's wrapped. It needs its own place. And your boveda has to have one centralized place. Keep your place for your eguns and keep your place for the living. The living has their space and the death has their space. You have to kind of compartmentalize it a little bit. You have to try to avoid going to funerals, right? Or going to hospital visits too much because in Yekun Oshe, we attract a lot of eguns, both good and bad, unfortunately. They come in all shapes and sizes. Yekun Oshe, Oyekumote, it's a sign where Olofi had asked Orumila to visit a land where there were no living beings. It was a place of rest for the dead kings of Ife. Right? And what was discovered was that even within this land, that there had to be someone that needed to reign. And in that land that reigned, it was Iku. In that land that reigned, we saw the relationships, which is why we have the relationships of the Orishas of the cemetery, with where the packs of Iku come with Orisha Oku, Oya, Oba, Yewa, Babalua, Ye. Right? And you begin to see that in your sign and how these things become very connected in many different ways. In addition, this is a sign that talks a lot about where the person has to be able to always understand their dreams, right? They have to be able to have and do little things in their dreams This is why it's good to do Ifá consultations, right? I do Ifá consultations, and I give you one piece of advice. With when I do the consultations, is I tell people, if you can get a glass of water, you get a piece of siempre vive, put it on top, right? And it has to be a fresh glass of water. You put that underneath your bed on where you put your head, and you allow that clean energy to flow while you sleep. Right? Take a lot of spiritual baths or a lot of spiritual baths, right? Maybe with cascarilla, efun, right? Because you need to understand your dreams because your eguns are very strong, and as a daughter of Oya, they need to come in clear so that you can understand what they're trying to warn you about and what they need you to relevate to others. And this is a particular sign where all your eguns gotta be fed. All your eguns are gotta be on point. 100%. This is a sign where Yemaya, Yemaya and this sign, we always gotta be careful because the story of Yemaya tossing the opeles, right? The opeles are, like the little equiles that we throw as babaláos, right? The opeles, but they just made a little bit different with the opeles seed buds. But Orumila caught, Yemaya tossing it in this story, in this Odun, where now he cursed her. This is the reason why Yemaya, and again, metaphorically speaking, there's nothing wrong with Yemaya and Ifa or Orumila, but they were trying to make a point in this Pataki that the relationship with Yemaya, in contrary to Ifa and what the rules and obedience needs to be strong. Your Maya is representative to the people in your life. Be careful about trusting people in your life to do certain things for you to only figure out that you're going to be disappointed. Right? Disappointment is a big deal here, and you got to make sure you understand who is in your life, why they're in your life, and you can't necessarily take anything personal if they maybe disappoint you, because you can also give them, no different than Orumila, he left access to the Opeles, to Yemaya. Don't give people access to things that you truly care about, that you know is going to get you all excited if they do something to betray you. And particularly, this is a sign, I mean, and we can go on and on and on about this sign, man, but this is a sign where the Iyamis are really good for you. They give a lot of luck to Oyokumoche. You got to do a lot of ceremonies, right? Where we got to give IPC to the Iyami or Shorongas, right? Because this is a debt that is needed in order to solidify a lot of different things. When we talk about Oya, again, I think it's a very good sign. I believe that with your sign, with your guardian Orisha, and without hearing what Oya has to say, if you got crowned one day, and hearing what Elewa has to say, and putting pata y cabeza, right? One leg from the feet and one leg from the head, which means from Oya and Elewa, and putting it together and understanding your astrological sign and mire de legum, I would say that, you getting crowned and you working Egun and you just trying to evolve your life around what is needed in your world is particularly acceptable, right? And you don't necessarily have to be on top of the Orisha game and constantly having to go watch Orishas and yeah, learn. I think learning is important, but then you begin to change and influence that spiritual and that generational curse that we're talking about because you have a very strong sign. And we're trying to maneuver that for the betterment of you, your family, and your future, right? And more importantly, because of you, the reincarnation. Hopefully that helps you. Hopefully that helps you. All right. Thank you for confirming what the egg wounds have been showing me. Yes, I have. I've even had friends cross over loved ones whom I've never met ask me to give my friends messages. No, boy, I'm glad that you are finding that connection. I have to say, Yamaya has been my abundance, and I pay a lot of homage to her. Iburu Boya. She lives in your Odung, as you should. Iburu Boya. My family members have been those people who I've never been able to trust. I do want to get crowned and see who my feet, as you said. Well, Elegua is though. So when we say pata y cabeza, we're talking about the sign that Elegua gives you, in Mire de Legun, and the signs or the throws that you, or let me not get into it, that Oya. So Oya signs and your Elewa signs, and then we take a combination of and we create another sign to better explain who you are and what your purpose is. Now, very beautiful. All right, what else I got? Any other further questions? I think I'm good. I think I'm good. Hey, I appreciate everybody logging in. We stuck at an hour and 15 minutes. I'm always amazed at how much I can speak here and how many questions I get. And I'm very grateful for each and every one of you. I really am. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the likes and the shares and the subscribe and the emails. Shoot them away. I told you, I'm about to retire soon. You know what that means? Boo, party time, 24/7, 365. You fire in everybody's face. All right, guys. Hey, I appreciate each and every one of you guys. And really, I do love each and every one of you like my family. You know, my subscribers, you guys are it. My ile, you guys are it. You know what I mean? I live, die, Ifá. And with that said, Iburu, Iboya, Bucheche, Sabalan, your fair Babaláwo, at least I hope so. Omodum Odileke. Until next time. Merci. No, no, but boy, email me, email me. I'm still looking at messages, even though I said bye. All right, I'm grateful for you, and they're definitely, merci, merci. French, man. Hell yeah. Really appreciate you. Good night. All right, guys. All right, I think we're ended here.